You know, I mean, it's a massive organization. It's something that really impressed me at Deutsche Bahn is if you put the focus on something, you will definitely solve it.
Peak, the innovation talk by ekipa. Peak is an in-depth eye-to-eye exchange between equals with which we want to deliver knowledge and impulses for you to benefit from. Our founder Justin talks to guests about innovation, digital transformation, and the potential of the digital generation.
In today's episode, I am talking to Nils Hillebrandt. Nils is startup manager at DB Mindbox, the startup accelerator program from Deutsche Bahn. With DB Mindbox, they launched their 100-day POC, which is a well-structured program for startups who are looking for scaling opportunities together with big corporations like Deutsche Bahn. We talked about the development of their startup accelerator since the launch 5 years ago and the structure of the 100-day POC and how startups are able to scale within and even beyond this program. Enjoy the episode.
Nils, welcome at Peak, the innovation talk by ekipa.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming to DB Mindbox.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. How would you describe innovation with 3 words?
It's real hard work.
Real hard work. All right.
That's copied, actually.
By who?
Thomas Edison.
Okay.
Roughly, more or less.
What was the last thing that you posted on social media?
Actually, the truth is, I'm not so sure if I ever posted anything, but I'm glad I have you guys posting something on me.
We did. We announced that we have the talk today.
In a way, yeah.
What is, for you personally, the most special thing when going or traveling with a train?
Right. I really like just to sit there and watch the world go by next to the window, right? I mean, most frequently I use the time to work as well, but it's sometimes really a pity because you can really relax there. So, you know, what the marketing colleagues say is actually true. Like, this time is yours, right, when you're on a train.
What do you prefer, incentives or intentions?
I like intentions, personally, right?
The last one, working in a startup or working at a startup accelerator?
Working in a startup.
Working in a startup? All right. Well, right now you're working in the Startup Accelerator program, right? So you're working as a startup manager at DB Mindbox, the accelerator program from Deutsche Bahn, the German rail. How was your way until you landed as a startup manager at Mindbox? Maybe you can provide some insights on your professional way until you landed here at DB Mindbox.
I started off as a strategy consultant at some point. You know, I had a business degree, things like that, and I had a lot to do with engineers. So I did a mechanical engineering degree on top, and you know, equipped with these two sort of sides of the coin, I entered Deutsche Bahn in business development, if you want, you know, so streamlining processes, all these things. And you know, I entered from there into the maintenance area of the high-speed trains. So I had an everyday perspective on, you know, which things needed to be changed, you know, all the areas where innovation was required, really. So it was a small step from the maintenance part of the high-speed train division into DB Mindbox. And today I'm also taking care mainly of what are the engineering, the maintenance, the operations topics. So it's really very closely linked.
One of the benefits for you that you're responsible, especially for the technical focus areas here, might be that you have an interdisciplinary background, right? So as you mentioned before, you started with business, academic career, and then you made on top an engineering degree. How came that you combined both? I mean, you mentioned that you worked a lot with engineers or engineering background characters, but what was your intention that you first of all said you want to have a business degree and then you want to have on top an engineering?
I think the engineering part is really kind of a dream, right? This is something I've always wanted to do. And the business degree, you know, at the time, I'm kind of old, you know, so at the time it was only possible really to do a double degree scheme, two countries involved in business, right? So I think that was my main driver. I came from France at the time when I started studying, so I really wanted to have this binational aspect in my degree to start with, and that was sort of what made it tip towards the business degree. But you know, I never lost my old dream, so I had to repeat afterwards.
All right. Then you started at a consultancy, and now you're here in a startup environment, which might be quite the opposite of a typical conservative consultancy. Why did you decide to change the sides, switch the sides, and go into a startup and innovation environment? What was your intention there?
I think to start with, maybe the consultancy that I used to work for has their Spielfeld just around the corner, so it's not so far away, I think. by content, because what you do in an accelerator really is like in a very short time you try to get things done, to realize things, to actually prove business value in what you do to your customer, which is an internal customer for an accelerator, but still, like it's extremely condensed, and this is what we do here as well. So I think I do benefit today from the structural learnings that I had during the consultancy years. However, the switch then inside Deutsche Bahn was really the effectiveness of the Mindbox program itself. I think that DB Mindbox has over the years earned a strong reputation inside Deutsche Bahn.
Absolutely.
Because as they say, you always meet twice if you're at Deutsche Bahn. It's a common saying in Deutsche Bahn. It's actually true. So if you build a strong reputation for completing things, for getting things done, this really helps you, because you will meet the satisfied clients again. So at the end of the day, it was that what convinced me, like the strong links into the business divisions, that despite being on a corporate level as DB Mindbox, you can still have an effect directly on the everyday operations in our business divisions.
All right, I understand. You mentioned before that you would prefer working in a startup over working in a startup accelerator program.
Right.
Starting as a consultant, now being startup manager at DB Mindbox, have there been any roles, any stations that you had, any experiences as a startup founder or as someone who worked in a startup?
Not really, no. I've done a few things like that with other people. I was sort of a consultant to founders. Yeah, one of them is my wife, but I've never really actually felt sort of the heat of being in there and having to prove every day that you're making progress to say an investor or to your team or to yourself. I mean, I do that in my everyday job as well, but if you're an entrepreneur, obviously there's a difference. So that's something I'd really like to experience still in my life. I'm not so optimistic that I'm actually going to take the challenge because I really like it here as well. But when you first asked, I went for what was sort of the new discovery, to be made.
You mentioned that you maybe want to experience that working as a startup founder, as an entrepreneur, or someone who works in a startup. What is the thing that, besides that you have a great working environment here at the Mindbox, what is the thing where you say, that this could be a challenge, this could be a hurdle, so that you don't make this dream or a thing that you think about come true in the future?
Don't worry, I'm not saying this for my boss or anything. It's just that I'm really happy here. I think equipped with the experience that I have now across business divisions and different departments, I can really live up to the role here fairly well. Okay, well. So I'm happy here. There's no real hurdle in that sense.
And I can totally understand that, because right now you're working with a lot of really exciting startups in a really exciting environment as well here at DB Mindbox. What's the thing that excites you the most when working with young entrepreneurs, with people who are really motivated in building something?
Right. It's really technology. I'm really impressed in what people can do. Like I studied the engineering degree rather late, so you don't ever become a real engineer, I would say. And if I see these guys here, who are really 100% experts on their stuff, I really appreciate what they bring in, and it's exciting, like the speed at which they realize things. Quick snap, something's done, go from there to the next solution. So it's the technology aspect, and it's also like project management wise, obviously, the efficiency, the agility with which they act during the 100 days.
Talking about technology, is there any startup in your past 2.5 years as you've been working here as a startup manager that you kept in mind in a special way, where you say, well, this was the most exciting, the most innovative technology that you experienced here?
All of them, right? I mean, I would find it very hard to make a choice, really. And I don't think it would be fair. I mean, they all have their strengths of a certain kind. No, I think it's rather like when I look back at the track that I've had at Mindbox so far. I mean, it's probably more like the personal involvement into the project that sort of created a lasting expression. Like, for example, I had this task. It was actually my second startup that I worked with during the POC phase, because we do the project management during the POC phase of the program. So that was my second startup, and we started off in September, right? I think the POC, the 100 days, started in September, and the task was to find lizards on drone images. You have certain protection laws for lizards, so for Deutsche Bahn it's very important to know if there are lizards in a certain area.
Seems like a very specific goal.
these lizards, they tend to go to sleep over winter when temperatures go below, I think, 20 degrees or something. Now, if you picture September, you know, it's a close shot. So we only had this September, and yeah, it was a very challenging project at the end. So you know, I remember winter approaching and us being under pressure to actually take some images of lizards out there. So it's this kind of experience. That's what I want to say. It's this kind of experience that creates uniqueness. No. When looking back. So yeah, I would really prefer to keep loving all the startups out there that I worked with.
And I can totally understand that. Let's talk a little bit about the DB Mindbox and the program, this 100-day POC that you're offering here. In preparing this talk with you, we did a little research, and what we found out was that, especially in seed and Series A funding rounds, startup accelerators and incubators only lead or organize 14% of all the funding rounds that are happening in Germany.
Right.
So it seems like that the finance part isn't the highest or the biggest benefit for startups when joining an accelerator program or an incubator. Mm-hmm. At the same time, there are a lot of accelerator programs and incubators out there in Germany. I mean, I founded my startup 3 years ago, and of course, at the beginning, we also looked and did some research on, okay, what accelerators exist, what incubators exist, what could be most interesting for us. What would you say, of course, with the focus on DB Mindbox, what is the biggest benefit that an accelerator program like DB Mindbox can offer to young entrepreneurs, to young startups who try to go the next step and try to grow as much as they can?
Yeah, it's an interesting statistic that you're quoting, and actually, when you say that, I realized that I have been asked for funding for the first time 2 weeks ago. Oh. Right, I've joined Mindbox 2.5 years ago, so yeah, it's a significant time. I would say that has passed until the first request of that kind came around. So it's sort of we have the same experience. Startups come here not for the funding, right? So why do they come here? I think the main benefit that we can offer to them as Deutsche Bahn is really our long-term orientation, which means that we try to ensure access to technology for Deutsche Bahn business units, right? And this by definition means that we're acting towards a concrete problem, right, which we need to be solved. So there's always a long-term intention behind this, and I think this is something that the startups feel during scouting. It's something that they're always very interested in finding out why we do the scouting. And also I think DB has a good reputation for validation. If you manage to validate your solution in a rail context, in a German rail context maybe even the more, then this is always a good basis to scale upon, even if it might not be in the rail sector. And the third point would be I mean, if you want to access the rail sector, it's probably a good idea to go for, I don't know, SNCF, Deutsche Bahn, or one of the large players who are actually still the technological gatekeepers, if you want, to the entire system. So I think this is what makes DB Mindbox and the program attractive to the startups, rather than, say, the cash they receive, which they do receive. I think these are the main points.
Okay, I see. So summarized, you would say that besides the funding part, or instead of the funding part, the most interesting benefit that you could bring as DB Mindbox is, on the one hand, access to a bigger organization like the Deutsche Bahn organization, which is indeed really big, and there are a lot of structures that you might, or that you need to overlook when you want to work together with such a big organization as a young startup, and at the same time giving the opportunity to scale faster than you could as you just work on your own, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it's scaling and validation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can totally agree on that, because again, my own story, when we started founding the startup ekipa and trying to grow it, I mean, we worked together with big organizations. We were working together with a lot of big companies, big organizations. And we always see those challenges and those hurdles, because I think that these are completely different worlds that we're talking about, right? So on the one hand, they are really big organizations. They are well structured, they are long established, and they already have their perspective and their opinion on how work works actually, and how technology and innovation works. And on the other side, we are really, well, most of the time, young people, young startups, young founders who have their own mind and have their own perspective, right? And there are a couple of times that we experienced it in the past that these two worlds are speaking like two completely different languages, actually. And therefore, I can agree on the point that you say that accelerators like DB Mindbox could be or could have the role as a translator or as a gatekeeper or an access provider for bringing those both worlds together, right? And bringing them not just together, but also providing the right framework for a good and efficient collaboration, right? So I think this is, from my point of view, one of the biggest benefits that accelerators could bring. And I think when startups, like startups who just founded their startup out there, look for a good accelerator program, this is something where they should focus on. So meaning, how does an accelerator, or especially a corporate accelerator, how does an accelerator provide structures and access and gates to the bigger organization behind it? So I can summarize, I can totally agree on that point. Going 5 years back, 24th of November in 2015, this was the founding date of DB Mindbox. I know you haven't been part of the founding team of DB Mindbox, but of course you might have heard some stories about that. What was the first intention? What was the reason why DB, or what would you imagine, what could have been the reason why DB said, okay, we need to found something like DB Mindbox? Was the first intention exactly this, what we've been talking about? Providing access, providing a gate, providing a scaling partner, or what was the first intention?
As you said, I wasn't part of the team at the time back then, so I was not an eyewitness of what happened back then. But obviously, I've heard stories told, and I think it's really the vision of a group of people who decided to really integrate startups as a continuous source of innovation, right? So actually, it was a transformation. Now, organizationally speaking, a department called the Future of Infrastructure, right, was transformed into DB Mindbox. So I think at the time, I'm not so sure, but I think at the time it was kind of visionary as a corporate still to have an accelerator. I mean, there were some accelerators out there, but I think Deutsche Bahn was an early mover there, and I think it really came down to the vision of a few people who saw the future in innovation together with startups.
Going 5 years into the future, now it's 2020. What changed the most between the founding of DB Mindbox, or at least between when you started here 2.5 years ago and today?
I think 5 years is an age at which, at the latest, you'll be looking back and draw your conclusions from that. I mean, obviously we do that every day, and it's a continuous process here. But I think some strategic alignments might make sense. When we're looking at streamlining the processes after the 100-day POCs in a way that we don't lose any momentum, right, in continuation after the 100 days, I think we still have a bit of homework to do there. If you want to develop an accelerator into the direction where it even more seamlessly interacts with the corporate organization, this might require maybe even some fundamental changes to our program structure, to the way that we do things here. So unfortunately, 6 weeks ago, our founder left DB Mindbox. So there's going to be a new head of DB Mindbox, and I'm really curious to find out which way the team, together with the new leader, will steer DB Mindbox.
All right. Now we talked a little bit about the history of DB Mindbox. Let's talk about the structure and what you can offer. I know that you offer different formats and different projects and different offerings on how you can support startups. And we worked together last year in your program 100-day POC, where you scout for most potential startups in the world or out there with different focus areas. And they can apply for this program, and then they go through a 100-day program to develop a joint POC, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you could provide some quick overview of which formats you got and where you have some focuses on which areas.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I must say that doing a POC, a proof of concept, within 100 days is, for 95% of the startup cooperations at the core of what we do, right? And then we structure these POCs into programs who are mainly run by topic. So we have a human resources program once a year. So Mr. Seiler and his fellow executives make a call for applications then for a variety of human resources topics. Similarly, we have something that we do for marketing and regional traffic. So you have headers like that, and under this umbrella, if you want, you will find the different POCs, the different search areas in which we do the POCs. In terms of format, as I said, usually the 100-day POC is at the core of what we do, but we have different types of taking the topics, the use cases out there to the public, right? So what we usually do is we advertise, on events, like on virtual events now here at Ekipa. I'd really like to do that later on maybe. So this is how we find our startups, and then the business division in one format or the other select finalists and select winners as well. Who then go on the 100-day POC track. But we also have startup challenges, usually once or twice a year, in which startups are actually competing, right? So you have a limited time, maybe 5 days, one challenge week, and you have to convince the business department that your approach is best and the way that you implement it is best. The advantage for our business divisions is that they get a more precise idea on the concept for the 100 days or whatever is after, and they get the feeling also which startup works best with them, right? So that's the challenge format, which is something slightly different than the mere 100-day POC. And what we really like to promote as well is getting involved with the mobility community, the hackers out there, provide open data for them, organize hackathons, also participate as Deutsche Bahn in other people's hackathons, maybe together with other operators. So this is the third way of interacting with startups, founders, or just the mobility community out there.
5-day challenge seems to be really ambitious, but at the same time, I think 100-day POC also seems to be really ambitious for startups, even though they are really quick and really dynamic and really, ambitious founders most of the time. You talked about competition. Isn't applying for this 100-day POC also kind of a competition?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just not so much fun in the sense that you can't be there and convince the department of your strengths of your approach, right? If you enter into a challenge week, and that also implies that you're going to have meetings in the morning, in the afternoon with the experts, discussing your current status with them, discussing your approach with them. You're going to learn a lot about the rate system. You're not going to have to do it for free, so there's going to be a payment involved as well for participation in the challenge. So I think it's a lot more fun to actually be in the challenge and compete there at the spot. However, obviously, this is a challenging environment, definitely, and we make no exception to that. If you apply for our program, then obviously there's a selection process involved as well, and there's a selection day at the end. Or a pitch event during which you're going to have to convince the jury. So definitely, we go for competition.
How does it work in detail? Maybe you could provide some more details and some more insights about this scouting and competition and application process, because I could imagine that there are some startups out there, some founders out there in our community who could be interested in this program, and maybe they would like to know on how this exactly works. How do they apply? Where do you look at exactly? What is your criteria for selection? How does it work?
Yeah, I'd love to, obviously. So if you are a startup out there, then what you need to do now is apply at www.dbmindbox.com for our next program, which is the future of operations and maintenance, right? And maybe I can use that example to illustrate on what we usually do. Maybe we can also discuss about the contents later on, what's actually content-wise behind future of operations and maintenance. But looking at the format to start with, what we do is that it's almost a running process, the ideation. People know us, people know me, people know that we are always looking for challenges to tackle with startups, so they think of us. So it's a running process, but really, say in September, October, this is where we actively get involved with the business units whom we are organizing the programs for. And at very different, in very different ways, we do the ideation with them, right? You have some business divisions where it's a top management decision, which topics go into DB Mindbox, which has its upsides, obviously. And there's other business divisions where top management says, okay, go to the shop floor and ask the guys, if they have things to tackle with DB Mindbox, fire away. So we have a variety of different ideation processes where we take our use cases and search areas in. For the next program, like we're about to terminate this, if you look at the use cases on our website, you're going to find that there might be an extension of those use cases still. It's always an ongoing process. But at some point, sort of, we close the gates in terms of ideation, and then we do the scouting. At the moment, this is obviously also running in parallel. I mentioned earlier that we like to go to events or virtual events and spread the word on social media or together with you guys. We use our databases. Obviously, we use alumni who know other startups. We know
word of mouth.
VCs, all these sources that we have built up during the past 5 years, and this is how we do our scouting. And then there's a pre-selection process, right? Inside DB Mindbox, really, we usually log in Bucor Chaussee, which is one of our meeting rooms here, the most cozy one. We log in there with donuts, and then we do the pre-selection process. See how this is going to work virtually in December. So there's no donuts to my colleagues out there. At the end of this pre-selection process, what we aim for is to present 6 excellent startups per use case or search area to our department, who then does the selection of the 3 finalists, who are invited to the selection day event, right? And this is all going to happen until Christmas for the next program coming up, and then we have the selection day end of January. I think it's most likely going to be the 26th of January. And for this specific program, the selection day is a workshop day, right? We're talking with engineers here, mainly, and operations experts, and they have a very strong need to really discuss technological requirements eye to eye with the one who's going to solve it. So they really ask for a full day in which you have the opportunity to also have one-on-one sessions with the startups, and this is highly valued by the startups because for them, obviously, as a percentage of their resources, the POC program is a higher investment than for Deutsche Bahn. So I think it's fair that both sides have an in-depth opportunity to sort of weigh up like how well the fit to the use case is. And then based on that, based on the learnings of that day, of that workshop day, we have a pitch event in the afternoon. So it's maybe something where middle or top management is more likely to attend. And on the basis of this, we're then combined with the experiences during the day, obviously, we're making a selection. And so this is how we do it for future of operations and maintenance. Other programs are more sort of pitch events, or the selection is more of a pitch event, where we meet up here ideally or on Zoom. Where we meet up and it's 5 minutes pitch, 5 minutes Q&A, and then it's a selection process, which is also an interesting variant, which is not something that really works with the operations and maintenance guys.
That means that the selection process differs between the different batches and the different focus areas that you have, depending on the needs of the department that provides the topic, or how does it work?
Now, to be honest, like operations and maintenance is the only exception.
Okay.
Right.
Why is that?
I think it's really because it's purely technologically driven, right? Obviously, everything that we do, everything that startups do here is technology driven, right? But if I'm an engineer and I want something to be solved, then I'm very likely to sort of want to understand also the solution that the startup brings along. If I'm more of, a marketing or human resources executive, then I'm probably not going to understand the technology that's being put in place. I'm just going to have to understand like the processes that are changed and the way that the solution works. So I think it's really driven by this need of the engineering guys and the operations guys to understand the solution, right? And also on the other side, the startups require this as well because they know that only, in a personal interaction, they're going to be capable of really like sort of sensing whether their solution fits and whether also there's an organizational fit.
From the perspective of a startup, I could imagine that they're interested in how big is the competition. Maybe you could provide some indications. Of course, I can imagine that there are some different numbers between the batches, but maybe some indications about a typical batch. How many applications do you receive there?
It's true what you say, right? Competition is fierce, as it always is out there, but I think that we have a very low hurdle to entrance. We have this website which, this program is going to be the last one where the application is on this website. To be honest, it sometimes breaks down, yeah. So we're updating our website for the next program, but I think at the end of the day, it's totally manageable, like this application and the pitch deck that you upload there. So I don't think there's much loss at that stage. If we pick finalists and we invite finalists, the invitations that are going out before Christmas now, then I would say there's a 99% chance that one of the 3 finalists is going for the 100-day POC as well. After that, there's a 60% chance that you get into a follow-up cooperation. At the end of the day, it's all in your own hands, right? But on average, it's 60% follow-up cooperation. So I think it's worth it. It's worth entering the process. But generally, the first step on the first milestone, if you want, on the first selection milestone, we receive a lot of applications depending on the topic as well.
I think one of the main reasons might be that you offer really exciting, really beneficial programming, right? And maybe you could provide some insights about that. How does this 100-day program work in the end? Yeah. So what happens for a startup if they get selected within the competition, within the application process? And how does this 100-day program work from day 1 until day 100?
Yeah, definitely. It's a program where we try and also live up to our responsibility to also develop the startup, right? So when you go into the 100-day program, you get a 25K cash to support you directly. As I said, we're not taking any equity for that. You receive a coaching a la carte from Beta House X, here is our partner in Berlin. And we really get strong feedbacks on the coaches employed, and you can really pick from their coaching program what you require, what you need at the current stage that you're in. Plus we do mentoring, right? So sort of loosely connected only content-wise. You're gonna have a mentoring by top management, by board members, usually who are there to sort of be your sparring partner for your solution, but also to have a wider view on how you could scale inside Deutsche Bahn or maybe also outside. Usually these people have significant experience in that as well. So these are sort of benefits that you receive with the program. The 100 days itself, structurally, it's 100 days, so it's a very short time to realize anything. In Deutsche Bahn terms, it's maybe even less time, But what you get from DB Mindbox for those 100 days is, if you want, it's an additional engine, right? So one of my colleagues or me are going to accompany a startup with 50% of their capacity during the 100 days, right? So 2.5 days a week, I'm only on your case, and I'm only looking at ways to work around a problem, a challenge that might be there, I think the art is really to sort of direct the focus of the organization on that topic for that time. It's a massive organization. It's something that really impressed me at Deutsche Bahn is if you put the focus on something, you will definitely solve it, right? And so this is what we try and facilitate here together with our partners, with our innovator network inside the business divisions, right? We try and to create a momentum that really takes you to a successful POC within 100 days. And we structure that obviously we have our weeklies, then we have a midterm presentation after 50 days where we also try and push the startups towards the blind spots that they had until now, and also to lobby their solution. We invite management to also get their buy-in to what's developed in the program, and then we really force the Deutsche Bahn, the DB organization, after 100 days, we try and force it to make a decision, to actually define criteria for success and then also go into the next steps. And also in that we accompany our departments, right? I mean, procurement processes in corporates are usually challenging, and we've seen many cases of follow-up cooperations. So we're still on the case after the 100 days in a way. Actually, you're never going to lose the relationship to your startup manager. So I think that's very important, right? I mean, a clear structure starting from weeklies, midterm, and final presentations where we actually force ourselves to evaluate the result and then move on. Plus, somebody from Mindbox at your side, network, coaching.
And experience, right?
I mean, experience is something by now. I think we have had 120 of those 100-day POCs.
Which seems to be quite a lot.
Yeah, I would say it's significant experience, right? And as I said before, in a corporate, you build up a reputation that you don't really use. Right? It works both ways, and I think by now, DB Mindbox, the team has worked hard, and the startups have worked hard actually, to come to a point where reputation is okay, and we're really having access to a network of innovators.
I think I'm not only talking about the experience that you gained within the last years, but I think also from the startup point of view, what they can learn within those 100 days can also provide them a significant experience for the future, for building up and growing their startup. And at the same time, also talking about the department leaders, the people who decide about the challenges, the topics, and also who decide about the corporations in the end, they also provide their experience, right? So I think there are different areas where those startups benefit from the experience, from you as a startup managers, for themselves within those, all the events and all those meetings that they have within those 100 days, but also from the department leaders. So I think this could be really beneficial in the end for the startups.
Ideally, this is what we like to hear, and I think most startups also make this experience. Yeah? No, I'm not claiming everybody is totally happy after 100 days, but I think overall it's a well-structured program. Yeah.
Right. Before we go over to the questions from our community, maybe one last question that I'm really interested in to hear your opinion. Let's switch the perspectives. What would you say is the main criteria from the perspective of a startup to apply for an accelerator? I
mean, obviously, the teams they have a feeling on a technological match. Does my technology actually match that requirement? I mean, that's a hygiene factor. You need that. If you don't have a match there, then you're not going to apply. And if you take the next step then and you really invest and go into a 100-day program, I think what they want to find out before is how sort of seriously is this corporate taking me? Because we hear a lot of reports on corporates, just doing a POC with a startup, and when they have understood on how to solve it, they do it by themselves, type of thing, I don't know if they ever managed to actually do it themselves as well, but we hear reports from startup that many corporate programs sort of go into a direction like that. So I think many questions that I'm being asked before people actually commit to the program on startup side is things like what's the percentage on follow-up cooperation, also technological details where I can prove that I understand, that I know the use case, it is an actual use case. So I think it's really sort of a mixture of this technological fit that you require combined with the honesty of the corporate or the startup hub, the perceived honesty in that.
And this helps by building up a reputation, building up success stories, showing the startups that you really are honest with your intentions on why you build up this accelerator program and why you want to help startups to grow together with your organization, right? But from the perspective of the startup, once again the question, incentives or intentions?
I would say in our case it's really 50-50. I'm sorry, I can't decide for one, even though you framed it as an or question, right? I think the incentive here is really that you can validate your problem. You can take this away, and it's probably accepted in most areas of the world if you have a Deutsche Bahn validation for what you do. So that would be your incentive. However, the intentions are always there, I mean, the rail sector is big. The Deutsche Bahn alone is probably big enough to scale up with this solution. So I would really go for 50-50 if I may.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I can totally accept that. Yeah. All right, as I mentioned before, we announced this talk today, that we are going to have the talk with someone from DB Mindbox, with you as a startup manager of DB Mindbox. And we tried to collect a couple of questions from our community, which also consists of a lot of startup founders in the end. And they provided us with a lot of questions they had about, or they have about, the DB Mindbox and the program, all that stuff. And we selected the, from our point of view, most interesting ones. And I will just read it out loud to you, and maybe you have some answers to these questions. The first one is, and it seems like this one, or the person behind it already heard about what you do. What are your next focus areas, and how could I apply for that?
Right. So, thanks for that question, really. The next program coming up is on future of operations and maintenance. So in business divisions, like, we usually have a board member that's responsible for what we call production, right? So that's the whole operations and maintenance areas. So that goes for the whole infrastructure part, like signals, switches, catenaries, overhead wires, these things. Rails, obviously, sleepers, everything that's around the infrastructure. And also for the trains operated on this infrastructure. So if you're into condition-based monitoring for diesel or electrical engines, this is the program to apply for by December 6th, right? Use cases are online on our website as well. And in spring, we're going to have a new program coming up, but it's not safe on which topic. Usually springtime is human resources time, but it's not that safe for next year yet.
We will keep you posted, definitely, dear community. The next question, so giving you a little bit of context, we announced this talk about the 100-day POC. Mm-hmm. And this is why someone asked, what happens after this 100-day POC? Mm-hmm. How do you provide potential cooperation models after someone successfully made it through the whole POC?
Right. I mean, to start with, for us it's really important that a decision is taken, say, after 120 days, right? This is sort of the kickoff for the period afterwards. And if you know large organizations, sometimes it's very hard for them to find a decision at all, right? So this is really how we kick this off. And if the results are convincing, which is at the end of the day a management decision, right? You have to convince somebody that you solve her or his problem, and sort of that you're paying into the balance of what this person is responsible for. So, I mean, obviously quantifiable criteria are nice, and we always try and make it possible that we have really like quantifiable criteria at the end of the 100 days. But you have to convince somebody. And if this person is convinced, and if this person has the budget, which we usually try and ensure before, then we go through the procurement process together. I mean, it's not like we can push a button and then just procure anything. We're a publicly owned company, so there's certain restrictions to that. So I can't say that in day 121 you're going to be already working on your next step, say your prototype or your certification or whatever. But we do take you into the next steps afterwards, and then it usually takes, I don't know, from 3 to 6 months until we can continue, right? Depends on the volume as well. If you're in it afterwards right away for a €2 million contract or something, obviously there's different rules then. Because then we straight away have to do a European tender.
To make it more tangible, do you maybe have a specific example from a startup in the past? How did they continue collaborating with Deutsche Bahn?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Actually, just last week, we had the good news that a €6.5 million frame contract was awarded to one of the first startups in one of the Mindbox batches. So
6.5 million contract. Wow.
I mean, to be honest, it took a few years to get there, and I mean, there were intermediary contracts with that team as well. So, it wasn't like the step after Mindbox. I think there were like a couple of contracts in between. So this is something, where something is being developed for quite a while together, jointly, and then there's a European-wide tender, right, because of the volume, and the startup actually performed well and won that contract, which sort of makes us happy because we know that startups can actually efficiently compete, after they've gone through our program at least. So this is one example. The other example is maybe a sensor, an IoT device from a startup that completed the program. And yeah, it took in that case it took I think 6 months to actually award the contract. But then there was a rollout to a fleet of 150 locomotives with that sensor to actually supervise their current status. So that went directly into rollout, whereas on the other example is more we had intermediary development stages still.
Seems like you have really exciting success stories, and I mean, once again, 5 years ago they started working together with you. Now 6.5 million contract together with Deutsche Bahn. That's quite a lot for a startup. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
The last question from the community: how did your work at DB Mindbox change through the pandemic?
As a team, and we're sort of well enabled to work together virtually, and I think this is also an ability that the startups bring along. So we didn't really feel on an everyday basis that there was the pandemic. However, if you want to install things inside trains, you have to go to depots where important maintenance workers are sort of being safeguarded from any infections. And so, yeah, we did feel that everything that required on-site installation together with Deutsche Bahn colleagues was difficult, right? So whenever it came to tangible, to physical installations, that did bring challenges, new challenges into DB Mindbox. Also, I think what's very nice is the functionality of DB Mindbox as a platform, right? If you have an event here, like many business divisions attend, this is a place where we also enable networking for Deutsche Bahn colleagues, and it's part of the attractiveness. You can mingle with other business divisions, you can mingle with startups, and I think you can take away a lot of insights and innovation impulses. So I think on that side, DB Mindbox really has suffered a heavy blow through the pandemic, and we can't wait to all meet back here inside the DB Mindbox, to think inside the DB Mindbox.
All right. Coming to the end of this talk, we brought 6 questions for making a little outlook into the future.
Right.
Starting with the first one. If you would found a startup in the future, what would it be? That's a tricky one, I know.
Something that's really driving me, and it's also one of the reasons why I work for Deutsche Bahn, is how we as a society can become more sustainable to keep existing on this planet. And I'd really like to sort of play my part and maybe found something in that area. So that would be most interesting for me.
If you had to choose, what would be your one and only criteria within the selection process of the badge maintenance?
Honesty.
Honesty. All right. Short and clear. What is your highlight that you're looking forward the most in this year, 2020, at DB Mindbox?
In 2020 is so short, and
6 weeks to go.
6 weeks. Crazy. No, I mean, we were going to celebrate our 5th birthday here, and it was cancelled, obviously. So nothing much is going to happen inside the DB Mindbox in 2020 anymore, unfortunately. But virtually speaking, obviously, I'm really looking forward to inviting all the candidates for our selection day in January, for the next program. So we really want to get these invitations out before Christmas. So yeah, that's going to be great.
All right, next question. What is your personal goal for the upcoming year, 2021?
I mentioned earlier that after 5 years of existence, maybe DB Mindbox could reconsider some aspects of its strategy and structure, and I'd really love to be part of that, right? So that I can sort of reap the benefits of the first 5 years. I joined 2 years ago when everything was set. I was able to work in this environment for 2 years, and maybe, I can experience next year the next step, also a next evolutionary step for DB Mindbox. And the best thing about this goal is that I don't know what it's going to be, right?
Absolutely. From your perspective, which technology will shape our future world the most in the upcoming years?
I heard that next year it's going to be mRNA vaccination, right? Which is going to change our lives, no? But yeah, I don't know. I was really impressed when now preparing the program on the current status of augmented reality options. I mean, this is something that has been around for a long time, but the idea that within the next 5 years, this might really widely penetrate the entire population so that everybody has one, it's probably going to completely change our lives. 10 years ago, nobody, well, 10 years maybe not, maybe 15 years ago, nobody knew how to use a smartphone. Now everybody does. The same is going to happen with those AR goggles. So at the end of the day, what is this going to do to our processes, right? Our field workers out there, there's so many things around Deutsche Bahn that are going to change with this technology. I think it's going to have a massive impact.
All right. And the last question, which is basically always our last question. What is your advice for our community, or for, as we call them, the digital generation?
Go to www.dbmindbox.com and apply for the Future of Operations and Maintenance by December 6th. Be honest, as I said earlier, this is what I value most. Don't try to fake it. Just look for honest partners out there. They do exist, they are looking for your innovation and they need your impulse. So as a society, we need you guys and your innovation. So keep going and try to keep it real.
And these are great last words for today's talk. Nils, thank you for all the insights that you provided today. Thanks for having us here at DB Mindbox in Berlin. It was really a pleasure, and it was really a great experience to be here to talk to you. I think you're on a really good way with your Accelerator program here. I think you have a lot of great success stories from the past that we also accompanied in the past last year. And I'm really looking forward to your next batch, which already started and where some of the startups out there, also from our community, can apply right now. What is the link again?
It's www.dbmindbox.com. Thanks for that.
All right, we will highlight that in our show notes and in the comments. And once again, thanks for the talk.
Thank you, Justin. It was great.
Do you want to know more about the talk or the topic? On ekipa.de/peak, you can find every information about our episodes, guests, and topics. We will also keep you updated on our social media profiles. The link you can find in the description box. See you next time at Peak, the Innovation Talk by Ekipa.